Malcolm has allergies, and I have to give him a pill every morning and every evening. As soon as I get the pill out, wrap it in, usually I put it in cheese, he goes to a specific spot in the family room and waits for me to give him that treat.
I could be a mess, stressed in yesterday. He don't care less, he sees me anyway. Yeah, he sees me anyway. My dog thinks I'm great, he thinks I'm number one. He never hates, even when I'm done.
Welcome to Dog Leads. I'm your host, Steve Bishop. I'm a certified dog trainer and have been working with dogs professionally for almost 20 years. I'm a member of the Pet Professional Guild, a Family Paws parent educator, canine good citizen trainer and evaluator, and I have a Bachelor of Arts in Psychology with a minor in Sociology. My website is available at bishopsgatetraining.my.canva.site. If you have any questions or would like to suggest a topic, you can contact me at bishopsgatetraining@gmail.com.
This episode is brought to you by Dogs Storks, presented by Steve Bishop. The presentation will be on December 13 and repeated February 7. Advanced registration is required. The link is in the description. If you are pregnant or planning to become pregnant, this program sets the groundwork for success through education before baby arrives. The goal of Dogs and Storks is to help expecting families learn how to set their dog and baby up for success through education and preparation.
I've mentioned before I'm a big definition person, so let's start with the definition. Generalization is having the dog respond in different situations, different locations, or with different amounts of distractions. And that very simplified definition. So, for example, when I train, I have these soft treats that I like to use, and I will ask for the behavior and give those treats. Generalization here would be, I don't have my treats, but I'm using a piece of chicken, for example, still having the dog respond. So it's that different situation. We've replaced one thing with another, but the dog is still responding in the same way. They've generalized that behavior. Likewise, for me to practice something in my basement, which we have a finished basement, it's quiet down here and it's very comfortable, the dog's familiar with it, but there's not a lot of distractions. So working on something here and then expecting to go to the park, for example, and have the dog respond still is not very realistic. So to generalize a behavior, like I said, I like to start with new behaviors with my dog in the basement so it's nice and quiet. We can really focus on what we're learning. As the dog gets a hang of it, we might go up to, we have some space in our breakfast room and kitchen, so we've got some room there, but it's right next to the family room with TV on, kids watching videos on their iPads and talking on the phone and whatever. There's a lot more distractions, but still somewhere the dog is familiar with and comfortable with. Then next, might move to the front yard. We live on a cul-de-sac, so it's pretty quiet, but you can't guess when, I don't know, a squirrel's going to run by or the neighbor's going to pull out of their garage or come out to check their mail, or all these different distractions that you have no control over. But again, we live on a cul-de-sac, so it's pretty quiet and the distractions are kind of minimized. Then next we might move to the backyard. Our house backs up to a major 4-lane road that goes through town. There's a lot of cars that go by. There's deer that have gone through the backyard. We used to have a groundhog on one side and a warren of rabbits on the other, so there's lots of smells and all these little distractions, so a lot more distractions. And then we might go to a park and just kind of work over in a field away from, not too close to anything that's going to distract them to the point that they won't respond, but still it's a lot less predictable. So we're slowly increasing the distraction level and changing the location so the dog gets used to that, or they generalize that behavior to different locations. Oh, when he says sit, it doesn't matter if I'm in the family room or in the front yard or at grandma and papa's house or wherever, I still have to do that. So that's kind of the idea behind generalizing. I feel like I may have talked about this before, but I covered in my classes and talk about it quite a bit. So I think it's worth going over again. When you are generalizing a behavior, you move from one location to another. Expect to see a little bit of regression in the behavior. So if you're doing a recall from 20 feet, you may have to cut that down to 15 feet or 10 feet when you move to a new location, at least for a couple of repetitions. But the good news is the dog should catch up to where they were in the previous location pretty quick. If they don't be afraid to move back to the previous location and work on the behavior a little bit longer. The other option is you can do kind of a half step. So, for example, I said I will move from the basement up to our breakfast room / kitchen. If I'm not seeing any progress, but I don't think I need to go back to the basement, I may go to the living room. It's a little bit further away from the family room where all this stimuli is going on, but it's not taking a step backwards, so to speak. So we can work on the behavior a little bit. The living room is a little bit quieter, it's a little bit further away, but we can still hear all the stuff that's going on. So it's kind of that half step between the basement and the breakfast room. So work at your dog's pace. Make sure they have these behaviors down before you try to get them to respond in these other places. It can take a little bit of time, but I've always said I've seen houses built in 30 minutes on TV, but we know it doesn't happen that way. It's the same thing with our dogs. It just takes a little bit of practice going over these things a little bit before we move to the next step. The flip side of that is discrimination. So, like I was talking about in my intro, Malcolm has not totally generalized the behavior, getting his medicine to every location in the house. I'm sure it would be really fast if I did want to generalize that to other places, just because he is very food motivated. But he has that discrimination where he knows the medicine comes out, I'm supposed to go to this one particular spot to get my medicine. And part of the reason for that, just closure on that little bit, is we don't want to feed him in the kitchen because he is a counter surfer, and that's one of the ways we kind of try and regulate that, is get him used to not eating in the kitchen. So another good example, I can't remember the name of the book, I will put it in the description, but a person was talking about, they were teaching their dog how to sit and they were having a little bit of a problem, and she had been talking to a friend of hers about it. The friend comes over to the house and the person, the author of the book, was telling her, we had a breakthrough, I'm getting the dog to sit. And the other person says, well, let's see it. She says, well, we haven't practiced in the backyard, I don't know if the dog will do it. She says, well, give it a try. And so the author, she asked for the sit. The dog ran across the backyard, into the house, into the kitchen where they did most of their training, and sat down. So the dog had learned discrimination, and is only doing that behavior in that one place. So for my group classes, for example, week 3, I start talking about generalizing and fading. And fading, I talk about that in episode 19 when I talk about schedules of reinforcement, but so I won't go over that ground again. So week 1, I start everybody off with what I call name recognition, having the dog look at you when you say their name, a sit, and a down. And so by week 3, if they've been working on these things consistently, they should most likely be ready to start implementing a generalization. It is very important that we generalize a lot of these behaviors, particularly if you're taking your dog out for walks or to the trail, to the dog park, that type of thing, so that the dog is responding when you ask them to. Now, for like Malcolm's medicine, it's not as big of a deal. I don't mind if he has some discrimination about where he is getting that medicine. It just makes our whole routine a little bit easier and go a little bit faster, particularly in the mornings when I'm trying to get ready for work. I don't have time to chase the dog around or deal with him coming up and whining and pawing at me for his medicine. We have that routine. And so discrimination is just fine in that circumstance. So just being a polite member of society, you want to make sure you're generalizing these basic behaviors for those situations. So hopefully you found this informative. As always, if you have any questions, if you'd like to suggest a topic, or you just want to say hi, you can leave a comment or you can email me at bishopsgatetraining@gmail.com.